Chris, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute. There you are.
Okay. So you guys didn't hear any of that?
Nope, didn't hear anything.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'll start over. I said we're not going to have a ton of participation tonight or interaction with everybody. I'm just going to kind of do a straight presentation. And when we get together on Thursday, that will be the interactive portion of what we're going to do. So aside from that, I was just saying that I hope you guys all had a nice weekend and got to get out a little bit. I went to the beach yesterday. It was nice. Saw Marquetta walking with Nicole down at the beach, and I went surfing for a little while. And it was just nice to get out of the house. So I hope you guys are doing some stuff like that as well. And we'll see how the restrictions, hopefully get loosened a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Only time will tell. But anyways, kind of piggybacking a little bit off of some things that we talked about with Rennie, the USC alum that we did an interview with last week, and then also partially with a JVA webinar that I attended. I kind of like mismatched some stuff together and just talk about a few things that I think some are just things that you guys can do right now, and others just and a little bit more education about the mental side of things and how to better prepare with your play and just being in a better headspace in general. So the first slide here is just kind of the things that we're gonna go over in terms of just the overall outline, which is kind of what I stole from the webinar that I watched last week, but we'll dive into each one of them a little bit deeper. And this is recording, so you can go back and reference this as well if you need to after we get done. So I'm gonna skip over here. So something that I think is really important right now, and I know for me, certainly in my life, I'm applying this as well, is if there was ever a time to establish a daily routine, it's now, because I really think that if you don't have a daily routine set for you, it's going to be real easy to let the days slip away. I don't know if anybody is experiencing this, but sometimes I feel like the days stuck at home almost go by faster than days that I was super busy, and I look down, and before I know it, it's like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and um, I don't know where the day went sometimes. And I think a big part of the correlation there is those days are days that I didn't have a lot of stuff planned, and time just kind of slips away. So I know you guys have your school, and you also have your commitments with your coaches and with me and with your team. So you've got a little structure to your weeks already. I'm not sure exactly how structured your school is at certain times that you have to be online, but certainly you probably have work that you've got to do at home that you've got to structure. So this is simple, common sense stuff. So we're just going to talk about it a little bit, mapping out a simple plan for your week. So, just a simple calendar. So this one's just got volleyball stuff on there. You may put this much volleyball into your schedule. You may put a little less volleyball into your schedule. Some of these things may have to do with your schoolwork, but just making an actual calendar and having it and writing it out, if you're not already doing that, I'd really encourage you guys to do that and kind of map out your days. And you can go a little bit. What I do is I kind of have a calendar like this, and I map out what I want to do for the week or next week. And then I have another journal that's like my daily journal, where I get into specifically kind of what I want to get done every single day. It usually includes the top 5 things that I for sure want to do. And I prioritize mine so that the thing that I want to do the least is the thing at the top of my list. So I try to do the thing that I don't want to do the most first. And if I save it to the end, it gets really hard to accomplish it. And there's seems to always be a reason to put stuff off. So it's good to help yourself that way. I think right now, making goals that you know that you can keep is really strong for you. If you are, and which we hope you guys are, keeping your skills up and doing as much as you can to stay sharp in terms of volleyball. We do also understand that there can be overkill on that. So don't set up this grand master plan of all these things and then not be able to actually fulfill it and find yourself in a situation where you're upset with yourself because you didn't knock out everything on your list. Really try to find that balance between making goals that you know you can keep, but also not having such a lean list of things to do that that you're really not maximizing your days. I listened to a podcast last week, and it's stuff that I've already kind of learned before, but it just brought it back to the forefront of my mind. And that's just designing your environment to be able to learn better, to get more stuff done. And there's so much that can be accomplished and so much that doesn't get accomplished. And it's a direct result of what is referred to as just the friction that we have in terms of the things that we want to get done and the things that that we end up stealing our time that are non-desirables. So what I mean by that is, if you want to accomplish a goal, if you want to get something done, try to ease all of the obstacles that are stopping you from being able to accomplish that. Okay, if you just use the simple analogy of a cookie jar, if you put the cookie jar on the counter right in front of your face and take the lid off, it's really easy to eat the cookies. If you put the cookies away on a high shelf behind a door where you can't see it, it's just that added extra work, or that added out of sight, out of mind, to keep those cookies not just in your face, goes a long way towards those habits. We want to think that we can depend on our willpower, but ultimately, setting our environments up is so much stronger and more effective and more consistent strategy for being able to get stuff accomplished and learn better than to just hope that we're going to do it. So, things for myself, just for example, when I wake up in the morning, I want to open up that journal and write down the things I have to do for the day. So I make sure that journal is in my vision when I wake up. So it's one of the first things that I see when I get up. So it's right on the forefront of my mind. If I were to put it away and not have it out, there's a good chance that I wouldn't get to it right away. I let something else come in between me and that time spending in the journal, and then before I know it, I've lost it and I don't get around to it maybe at all. So it's just little things. It's not any sort of grand gesture. It's just these like little tiny actions that we can do that really build up over time. And the reverse is true of the undesired things that that you want to do. So if whatever it is that might be stealing your time, that you feel like, you know, whether it's your phone, maybe you're on social media longer than you want to be, and you're you know, on some, you know, on Instagram or on TikTok or something, and before you know it, you look up and you burned an hour, and you end up at the end of that time wishing that you had spent that hour doing something more productive than losing yourself in that social media. And you got to find ways to create more friction for you, uh, you know, to not be able to do that. Maybe you've got to take your phone and put it in another room, so you have to actually get up and go to your phone and get it out of another room to be able to do that. If you're sitting at your desk and you want to get something accomplished, and your phone is sitting right next to you, and you're getting pop up updates or whatever, your brain is going to go to that. Understand that all of the apps that are created, they are created to get your attention. That's the whole goal of the people that make those designs. And so you've got to think the way that they think and try to kind of hack what they're trying to do to you with all those updates. Maybe you can just go into your phone and look at all the apps that you decide, hey, I would actually really like to get updates and to get banners and notifications on my lock screen and all the things of this. Or maybe there's all these apps that I could do something as simple as go in and adjust the reminders and not have that thing popping up every 4 seconds with some other thing that I want to look at. All right. So that's just examples of creating friction or lessening friction for activities that you want to do your goals. Okay, we're going to kind of move on to the next thing here. So taking a turn and talking about something a little bit different. Obviously, we can't do any playing together, and you guys are doing, I'm sure, the best you can on your own with a volleyball, or maybe with a family member or with a friend. But ultimately, you can't really play volleyball right now. It's a great time for you guys to work on your visualization and your ability to imagine how you want to play and what you want to be able to accomplish on the volleyball court. I wrote on here, if you can't imagine it happening, it's hard to make it happen. If you can't even see it in your brain evolving, or have an image in your mind of how you want to perform a skill, or have a video play in your mind of how you want to be able to go up and make an attack, or go up and get a block, or go up and perform, you know, a tough set that you wanted to get better at, or pass a tough serve, whatever it might be. If you don't have the power to visualize that in your mind and create those scenarios, I think it's really, really difficult to be able to do it on the volleyball court. And just because you're presented with so many random scenarios when you're actually playing, that everything will just hit you as something brand new and you're not sure exactly how to deal with. But you can do a bunch of playing in your mind of all those things. So a couple examples that I'd like you guys to think about and maybe try out. One is just find some video, find a player that you really like, find a college player that is a standout that you really like, or find a team that you really like. Maybe it's like, you know, Nebraska or USC or Florida or whatever. Or maybe it doesn't even have to be a Division I program. Maybe it can be a school that you're thinking about going to, and you Google some video of their volleyball team, whatever it might be. Find some video of some players that you would like to see yourself be able to play the game like, and just see if you can imagine yourself going into their bodies, going into their mind, and being able to play that point. So maybe you can watch the footage and watch a rally that lasts 15 seconds, see how it plays out, and then go back and watch it over again, pick that player that you want to be like, and focus on exactly just that player. Don't watch the whole rally, just watch that player and see if you can jump into their bodies and imagine seeing what they're seeing, and imagine the thought process behind moving where they moved to, or doing what they did, or picking the shot that they did, picking the set that they did, uh, whatever it might be, performing the serve that they did. It sounds easy in theory, and it is, but it takes a lot of practice to actually get good at it, and to be able to do it to the point where it feels real and your body can absorb it more as an actual experience versus just kind of throwing it off as an imaginary experience. So we're really trying to cross that gap between that imagining turning into something that our brain can learn from. And you don't have to always go through something yourself and experience it firsthand to learn from it. All right. So every parent, including all your coaches, and like, I think every parent in the history of parenting has tried to impart something to their kid about, I learned this. You don't have to go through this to learn it. You could just learn it from someone else who's already gone through it. And that applies even to watching volleyball and doing that. You can learn through somebody else's experience. And the thing is, you have this wealth of knowledge on YouTube, and all kinds of avenues to watch all this video. So you can accumulate all of this information of all these experiences that all these people have gone through, and you can just sum it all down and go through it yourself without actually having to experience it in person. And you can actually, if you're good at it, really gain a wealth of knowledge that way. So I want you to do that. And the second way is when you're getting specific into technique and into drills, practice, instead of just doing drills all the time and just drill, is taking a moment in between your drill or in between your rep and visualizing exactly how you want to do that rep, and then go and then actually perform it physically. So like, I just put up a setting video today on the YouTube channel, really, really simple, setting against a wall, but we were just working on a release. We weren't really working on high repetition sets against the wall, where if you're doing the sets in those videos, you're really working on what your hands are doing through your release. And so one thing you can add to that is you could do a rep, catch the ball, and then visualize exactly how you want to do the next rep. Close your eyes, play the whole rep out in your mind, and then perform it physically and see if you can match how you played it out in your mind, and practice it over and over and rep that. So if you're going to rep 50 releases, set releases against the wall, then rep 50 visualizations of a good setting rep, and you're getting twice the practice in. And later on, when we get into some of the confidence stuff, you'll see how that really comes to play, because now you have double the wealth of good experiences to draw from. So if you can imagine, if I do 50 physical reps and I do 50 really good physical reps, and I also do 50 really good mental reps, when I'm in a game and I set a ball, I've now got 100 really good reps in the bank to draw from in order to help me play well in the game. And especially if I have a couple bad reps, I can go back to that confidence that I gained from doing those good reps in practice, and say, okay, that bad rep that I just had, that bad set I just had in the game, that's not who I am. That's just kind of an aberration. That's an outlier. I know that I've done this 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000s of times, 100,000 times. And it'll help you get back on track when you're actually trying to apply these skills in a real game. And so that's why at the bottom there, where I talked about it translating into games. Okay, so aside from the visualization stuff, the other thing I wanted to talk about is kind of managing anxiety. And this was part of the presentation that I watched, but it also, I was referencing that interview that we did with Rennie, because that's kind of the path that the interview took at one point, was starting to talk a little bit about managing anxiety and managing self-talk. Oh, I realized when I did this slide, I actually was supposed to say self-talk underneath the manage anxiety. So what I really want to focus on right now with this is just specifically self-talk. So there's a number of ways to manage anxiety. One of them is doing all that visualization and just having a higher opinion of yourself before you even go into anything, and to be less anxious about it because you just have more confidence in the first place. But I think self-talk is something that we all struggle with in all aspects of life, but especially in high pressure situations in games. It's a fallacy to think that people perform better under pressure than they do not. No one performs better under pressure than they do with no pressure. It's just that some people perform as good under pressure as they do not, and some people have a huge drop off in their ability to perform once you stack pressure on things. First thing I put on here, it's just, you guys have probably heard this before, but it says whether you tell yourself you can or you can't, you're right. So if that's not self-explanatory enough, basically what I'm saying is if you tell yourself you can't do something, you're right, you won't be able to do it. And if you tell yourself you can do something, you're right, you probably can do it. And there's a lot of power in that, but you got to believe in it as well. You got to actually think that that is the case, and it's not just a hocus pocus type of thing. One thing with self-talk that I think is important to understand right off the bat is the way that your brains are built. So understand that a long time ago, when we were developing as humans, we had real threats that were out there, that you walked out in the world and you could be killed at any moment, at any time. And so part of the way our brains work is still built on that. We haven't completely evolved away from that type of mentality. And the way that manifests now is that because our life is not in jeopardy all the time, when we feel anxiety about situations, we have the same response of this fight or flight, like our lives are in danger, as we would, let's say like back in the day, thinking that we're going to get eat by a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. If you played for me, you probably heard me say something like, don't be scared. Like, you're not going to get eaten by a great white shark. Okay. Passing a ball poorly is not the same as being scared for your life that a shark's going to eat you there. And we understand that too. Logically, we understand that, but that's not how your brain interprets it. A lot of times your brain gets into this fear state the same way it would if your life was in danger just from making a bad play on the volleyball court. And so you kind of have to understand what's going on and how to combat it. There's an author that calls it your lizard brain, and that part of the brain that tells you that that things are a much bigger deal than they really are, and puts you into that fight or flight type of mindset. And for a lot of times, it's just that flight where you have your bad reps and you just want to get out of there. You shank a couple balls and you're looking at the sideline. You want somebody to pull you out, or you're a person who you shank a couple balls and you're thinking, coach, you better not pull me out. I'm gonna be so upset if you don't let me try to find my way out of this. So how do you turn into somebody that does the latter every single time? Obviously, I think the coaches across the board would agree that we would 100% of the time take the girl that we know wants to fight through that moment over the girl who's looking at the sideline for us to pull them out. And at least from the mental side of things, have that be the way that you go about it. There's another author that I listened to that I thought had like kind of a cool trick about this, and I've used it a little bit on my own, and you can try it out if you like. So because it's kind of like this part of your brain that you don't necessarily want to listen to and give credence to all the time, what he did was just change the verbiage and stop referring to those thoughts as coming from the author was a guy, coming from his brain, and he started saying these thoughts are coming from the brain. So the brain is telling me to be scared in this moment, And this guy was like an entrepreneur, and he's an action sports photographer and stuff like that. And he was speaking to taking a lot of risks in his career, and just in a lot of ways not always wanting to take the safe route. And so he would always try to judge, is this a good idea to take the safe route, or is it a bad idea to take this risk, or is it just that part of the brain, because we all have it, not just him, that is telling me not to take this risk. And he was able to make the decision to take some of the risks that he had that ended up paying off and being a big, large part of his success, just from changing the way that he referred to his own thought process, as not necessarily coming from him, but coming from almost like a separate entity that was trying to talk him into something or out of something. And then he was kind of able to have a dialogue with it, if that makes sense. Instead of just responding to the emotion of the fear or the emotion of the anxiety, it's have a conversation with the anxiety. Is this anxiety valid? Should I feel anxious right now? Or is my brain just trying to make me feel anxious about something that really I shouldn't be? And I can just kind of set that aside and put that somewhere else and deal with this and move forward. So when it comes to your self-talk, just a few simple questions here. One, does the way you talk to yourself make you play better? So it's not always exactly about the verbiage, or it could be situational. When I was writing this, I was thinking of a situation where I might talk to myself, and sometimes I might say something to myself that seems negative, like, hey, Chris, come on, get it together, and play better out of that. And sometimes I might think or say to myself the exact words of, Chris, get it together, and it makes me play worse. And it's really a lot more the emotion behind what I'm trying to say to myself. If I, in one instance, in the first instance, I'm like, come on, Chris, get it together, let's go. That has more of a moving forward. I'm going to push myself to break through this. Whereas I could do the flip side of that, and I could say, come on, Chris, get it together, in a derogatory, self-deprecating way. And if I allow myself to say it to myself that way, then I could have a negative effect on me. So not just the words, but think about whether or not that talk to yourself is self-deprecating, or whether or not that talk to yourself is motivating yourself to be better. And the best thing you can do, guys or girls, is just be conscious of it. If you can just bring an awareness to your self-talk, I think you're already halfway there. I think we go down the rabbit hole of really negative self-talk, and we don't even realize how hard we're beating ourselves up. And then sometimes it's just too late to recover. But if we can have that awareness of that self-talk, or of that lizard brain right off the bat, then we don't allow ourselves to get too deep in the mud that we can't pull ourselves out of that. So the next question would be, does your self-talk make your interactions with your coach better? And this was a really good point that Rennie brought up in the interview, where she talked about how she was really negative on herself because she's a perfectionist and she wants everything to go well. And she came to the realization that it was straining her relationship with her coach, because her coach wasn't actually able to give her the feedback that they wanted to help her, because they didn't know how to approach her, because she was obviously in such a negative headspace. The coach didn't want to add anything more to her, thinking that it might be too much, and she just wasn't in a place to be receptive of what she wanted to say. When in reality, Rennie really wanted the feedback from her coach. She wanted the help, she wanted the input, but the coach didn't think that. So there was a disconnect between the player and them wanting the help, and the person on the other end not knowing if that person actually wants the help or doesn't want the help. And that gets us into the next question, which is, how does your self-talk make your teammates act around you? So your relationship with your coach is important. Your relationship with your teammates is more important. And if you are in a situation where your self-talk puts you into negative spaces, and it makes the girls around you not know how to act, or not have the ability to help you when you want help, or to have you come off in a way that even though you do want help, no one can perceive that. They perceive something different about you. And that makes it really difficult. And there's no way the team is going to play better if they feel awkward around you in terms of the headspace they perceive you to be in, or whether they perceive you to be approachable, or they perceive you to be somebody that can help them and they can help and have a relationship with when things are going bad. Because we're not really talking about when things are going good. This stuff doesn't come up when things are going really, really well. This only comes up when things start to slide. I think about, if I just bring up an example, I think about you guys on the 15s team and that last day of tournament play where you guys had a couple leads at the end of some important matches and ended up getting beat late in matches. And in watching you, Eric and Tracy and I, we could all visibly see the anxiety, and we could see you not have the coping skills to get through that as good as you could have. And we understood that that's a learning process. And so we weren't upset about it. You guys are just freshmen in high school, or some of you 8th graders. And so we understand that's something that you have to learn, but at the same time, the three of us wanted so badly to just be able to take our brains and impart to you our ability to not be so anxious in those moments and not freak out and not have self-talk that was going to make us play worse, but have self-talk that was going to make us play better and be able to get through those moments. And so that's a big part of why we're going over this, and that leads all the way through. You can never be good enough at it. On the flip side of that, I think that a lot of the girls that are on the 17s team this year, who are on the 16s team last year, you guys came through a lot of matches. I saw you play a ton of matches. In my mind, especially last year in Vegas, that you won so many nail biters. And I don't know how many matches it was, Joe, but it's got to be at least 2 or 3 matches that you won on the way to getting the medal, that ultimately you could have just as easily lost those matches as won them if you had not have played as mentally tough as you guys did. And that was kudos to you guys. And it was just a great example of how one of our own teams was able to have success. And in my opinion, beat out some other teams just out of sheer mental toughness, where when you line our team up against the girls on the other side, it's an even battle. And we know it's going to be a close game because the skill sets are very, very similar, and there's not really an edge either way. So what's it going to come down? It's going to come down to your ability to cope with the ebbs and flows of the games, with the highs and lows of the games, how you're going to be able to deal with pressure points, how you're going to be able to deal with pressure serves, how you're going to deal with important points and getting set and having to put a ball away, or being a setter on an important point and trying to figure out where you're going to go with the ball and not second guess yourself. Those are all really, really important things for you guys to think about and to put into practice. And the last thing I put on here is just seeing if you can turn your self-talk into a friend instead of being your enemy. So that's the ultimate goal, is get your self-talk to be something that helps you and motivates you versus something that you have to fight against. Okay, so last part for Thursday. Kind of going over these same things. I got little bits of homework for you guys. If you are not already doing a calendar for your week, I would like you to set up your calendar and go ahead and do that. Like times before, I'm just going to call on you randomly. So somebody that I feel like calling on Thursday, I'm going to call on you and ask you to show us an example of your calendar. I also want you to come up with some ways that you can design your environment on creating or lessening friction. So you can just have one example ready to go of a way that you, for something that you want to be able to do, are going to create less friction and make it easier for yourself to be able to do the things you want to do. Or maybe it's something that's eating your time that you don't want to eat your time, and so you're going to make it harder to do that thing. a sample of a visualization you did, either watching film or doing a drill like we talked about, and an example of self-talk that helps you, that you think will make you play better if you're able to implement that a lot. And that's for you. And then one more thing, of an example of self-talk that helps you in your relationships. So the first thing would be, what would I say to myself to make myself play better on a particular point or whatever it might be? And the second thing would be, how can I talk to myself in a way that makes me a better teammate, that opens the relationships up with my teammates and with my coach? So let me stop the share here. So that's the end of the presentation. Let's see. Let me just unmute the coaches real quick. Where is Sam or Joe or Josu? Do you guys have anything to add to that at all?
Eric's here too. He's muted.
What's that?
Eric's here too. He's muted.
Yes. Oh, there you are, Eric. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, or I mean, just real quickly, I won't let the girls go, but
I just, if anybody, just along the same lines, just something it sparked in my head is like, if anybody can think of a time where your self-talk was telling you like that, you know, I can't do this and this is really hard, and like, you know, were you able to then push maybe like 1 point further, or if it was a workout, were you able to do like one more rep, or did you stop right then? You know, like how were you mentally able to overcome when your mind was telling you like, no, you know, were you able to take that step? And if you did, was it like a tiny step, one small step at a time, or did it feel overwhelming? You know, just that's something that we were talking about.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go. We've got more drills and videos coming out this week. I just uploaded the interview that I did with the University of Washington coach on YouTube. And so you guys can go and watch that one-on-one interview. And then I just sent an email out to your parents earlier today. If you don't already know, we have a 30-minute session like this set up with Carrie Walsh on Friday at 3:30. And so from 3:30 to 4, Carrie is going to open herself up for Q&A. And so I asked your coaches to reach out to you guys and to field some questions that you would like me to ask her. I've been advised that in a 30-minute session, I'm probably going to have somewhere around 5 or 6 questions that I can ask. And I want those questions to come from you guys. And so submit those to your coaches, and then your coaches and I will get together, kind of decide the 5 or 6 questions that we think would be the best, and then ask her. I don't think I'm going to be able to record that session. I'm not controlling the Zoom on that one. Carrie and the people from P1440 are controlling that. So if you don't watch it live, then there's a good chance that you won't be able to see it. I don't think I'm going to be able to record it like I've been able to record these sessions. So make sure you make yourself available for that. And you can also pass it along. If you have a friend that isn't at Rise, and I think pretty much have like unlimited number of people that we can have jump in on it. So you're welcome to pass it along to some of your friends that maybe just play beach or play for another club or whatever it might be. They can join in, and I'm going to forward that link out to the coaches. I think tomorrow I'm going to get that link from P1440 for that session. So I'll give that to your coaches as soon as I get it. All right. Okay. I hope you guys are doing good. Have a great week. I'll see you on Thursday and Friday with Carrie, but I'll see you on Thursday first. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.